welcome to the Bennington Area VNA and Hospice News and Information Show. I am your host, Marc Miele, Marketing and Fundraising Coordinator for the Bennington Area VNA and Hospice, also known as BAVNAH. In October 2014, BAVNAH was purchased by the Rutland Area VNA and Hospice, also known as RAVNAH. And although we are no longer part of SVMC, we still work collaboratively with the hospital to ensure the highest quality patient care throughout Bennington County. BAVNAH is a Medicare-certified home health and hospice agency, which means we are certified by Medicare to provide services to individuals in their homes. We are a nonprofit VNA and hospice serving Bennington County, and what that means is we are governed by a volunteer board of directors, and all the money goes directly back into the services offered to the community. Our services include nursing, therapy, social work, hospice, and community clinics. These keep our patients safe and happy and comfortable in their own homes. This is a series of shows that will inform you of news, information, upcoming clinics, and events provided by BAVNAH. Today with us is our clinical social worker and bereavement counselor, Elizabeth Fredland, who will be discussing depression, specifically during the holidays. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
So, Elizabeth, there are many different kinds of I don't know to say there are many different kinds of depression, but there are different kinds of depression, different levels of it. Some people just have the feeling of the blues. Some people might suffer from clinical depression and grief. In your experience in your profession, could you just take a minute and explain a little bit about those to us?
Sure. Thank you. It's an important point because there's different things that we all may go through, and to have some clarification of what's happening can really be a comfort when someone's going through a difficult time. So grief is probably going to come to us in all of our lives at some point. And it is the loss of someone you cared about, someone that was meaningful to you, someone that you loved. And it's a sort of an interesting way to think about it is it's adapting to that person's being absent from your life, not having a future to be around that person, which can be very upsetting and disturbing and really sort of interfere with our life and change how we view the world and how we feel in our own lives for quite a while. And there can be a lot of sadness with that, but that isn't necessarily depression. Grief is something that if we're moving through it, it will keep changing over time. We will continue to adapt. We will figure out life without that person. Depression can be triggered by difficult life circumstances. Stresses can trigger someone who's prone to depression, can trigger an episode. The way a bad or difficult, stressful life circumstances can trigger any kind of underlying condition that might not otherwise have come to light. But with depression, it's a little less connected with the event of a loss of a person. That there's more of a universal dimming down of the lights of the excitement about life, about caring about things in your life, about feeling like yourself. And it can be really good to start to recognize that in yourself if you feel like there's something's changing. But it really, in terms of clinical, when you say something is clinical, meaning something that needs treatment, it's when it really starts to interfere with your life and you're stuck. And it's not moving. We can all be down for a time. We can all go through hard times, but talking with friends, taking a little more TLC with ourselves, and it changes. We all have our ups and downs naturally as human beings. But if you're stuck and it's not changing, and it doesn't seem to be too connected with things going on around, you're not yourself. And then I think it's time to start asking for some help. Talk therapy, talk to your doctor, support group, whatever feels comfortable. Well,
that brings up a good question. Some people just might get confused with, I've got the blues.
Yeah.
The blues, just as an example. They might be just kind of in kind of a blah area for a week or so, but technically that isn't clinical depression, correct? So when would be a good time, how, is there a length of time or is there a certain, level of depression that somebody would have to start feeling or recognizing before they would seek treatment?
Certainly, if life is feeling so difficult, to go to sort of the far end, if life is feeling so difficult that you're starting to think, maybe I don't want to be alive anymore, Absolutely. That's a time to call. And I'm hoping that if somebody finds themselves, those thoughts occur to everybody from time to time. But if someone really gets stuck in depression, they can get to the point where they don't see any other options. And if someone starts to feel stuck like that, I hope that it scares them enough to say, I'm going to call somebody. You know, whoa, that's not me.
Right.
You know, you might hear other people saying to you, like, you don't come out anymore, you're not fun, or, you know, the typical things are a lot of weight gain or loss, or sleeping all the time, or not ever able to sleep, no interest in things that you used to enjoy, not feeling like yourself. All of those can be signs of depression. And when we're older, for older adults, it tends to manifest itself as a lot of worry. We call it rumination, which is, it's not productive worry. It's not, I'm going to think through this problem and I'm coming up with a solution for it, or just a little preoccupation, but just a continual revisiting of the same problem with no fruitful outcome to that worry. And that's rumination, where you're just going over it and over. And when older adults, that can be a real symptom. Aches and pains can get you down a lot more. It can be very isolating to be older, especially with the winter coming. And so it can show up just a little bit differently. Obviously, because there's a lot of life stresses, you know, and there are a lot of life stresses when you get older in the winter in Vermont.
There absolutely can be. You know, and it is tough, especially when you are depressed, because sometimes you think to yourself, you know, what's wrong with me? Everybody else around me is happy, but I'm not. You know, but it doesn't have to be what's wrong with you so much as what can you do to help yourself? You know? Now, a lot of people can feel depressed over the holidays. It's a happy time of year, supposedly a happy time of year. You know, family might be getting together, friends getting together, everybody's just having a good time, but some people just don't feel that happy during the holidays. Or they might start feeling even depressed after the holidays, after the hype. You know, you get so excited and then all of a sudden it's just kind of like, now what? So, are there any reasons that you're aware of why people might feel depressed during the holidays?
Oh, sure.
Like, what would be some of the...
Well, all the excitement of the time coming, but that can throw into striking relief what isn't going on in your life. So I actually told a friend of mine that we were going to have this conversation, and she started laughing because she's been in AA for a very long time. And she said, well, we tend to call the holidays the Bermuda Triangle. Because people start disappearing. Because, you know, all the things that are in lives that are not perfect, that are not the Christmas card, that are not the Norman Rockwell painting, can start to really put themselves right in front of us around the holidays. And or if we're just really not feeling it this year, and then everybody else is, and depression and feeling a little different than everyone else, like with grief. You already feel a little bit like an outsider. You know, you don't want to be the wet blanket on everybody else's happy campfire. So now everybody's getting excited, maybe you're not. And then you feel just maybe a little bit more isolated from everyone around you, which just...
It takes a toll.
It takes a toll. And the other thing is that, you know, we don't all have Norman Rockwell families. And so all of that can come up around the holidays. So... You know, it's sort of, you know, we've got all these expectations of what it should be like. And then there's the reality of our lives this particular year, you know, we're our families, and we've got to, you know, be a little human with ourselves in contrast to all this immense pressure to be happy. This time of year.
It's kind of like saying around the holidays, without making yourself feel down, but lower your expectations, because you are not perfect. None of us are. And for those of us who have gone to other families' Christmas parties, you see the same thing. You know, it's like somebody's fighting with somebody, somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that, and the person who was proclaiming to be so perfect really wasn't so perfect after all. You see their little faults, and then you're like, oh, okay, I don't have to feel so bad, you know, about myself.
All the family drama.
Well, if somebody does have clinical depression, or excuse me, doesn't, but they are continuously feeling down during the holiday time period. What are some of the things, if they know this in advance, and they're saying, oh geez, the holidays are coming up, here I go again, it's going to be another month and a half of just kind of blah. What can they do maybe to help prepare themselves for it?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of things you can do. I was just thinking financially, for a lot of parents, it's hard financial times, and Christmas is coming, and they get so stressed with finding the money for
Right.
toys, and that's such a burden to the season.
Mm-hmm.
Same for grief. Same for you've just had a breakup. Same for whatever reason, this year might not be the best year ever, right? Is to plan ahead and try to make it a more reasonable thing. Get together with your family and say, let's do one present per kid. Let's agree.
Mm-hmm.
We're only going to spend this much. Let's not put pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're a part of the family where another part doesn't have as much, you volunteer that. Like, let's not put all this pressure on each other to make it so, over the top.
Mm-hmm.
For Thanksgiving, if there's somebody you're worried about is maybe alone, or you think people are going to ask you to do something, you don't feel like you can do the big gathering, to plan ahead, what do you feel like you could do?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to invite a friend to a restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to invite a few people to your house, or you've always done it but you can't this year?
Mm-hmm.
Plan ahead and say, maybe we could do the buffet.
Right.
Let's do that together, because this year I just, I can't this year, and I want to
Right.
have a meaningful holiday, and I want to spend time with everybody, but let me think of a way to offer that will feel okay for me.
Mm-hmm. And again, not to put pressure on yourself,
Yeah.
and to, kind of settle it down just a little bit, so that way you aren't putting so much pressure on yourself to be perfect, to be
Right.
out there, and maybe, sometimes overstimulation causes the anxiety. And, for myself, for somebody who does suffer with depression and anxiety, they run hand in hand. There's no
Yeah, they do
way.
the same part of the brain.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, for me, if I'm anxious about something, before I know it, it shifts into depression. And then the depression will start kicking in and shift down into anxiety. And then before I know it, I'm just stuck in this cluster.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, this is way too much for my mind,
Yeah.
and now I can't sleep anymore, and now I get anxious and I can't
It's
eat
the
anymore.
spiral
Yep.
that we talk about. That's the spiral that we talk about, where you have to sort of, when people get more experience with it, and they get to know themselves, that's really the biggest tool,
Right.
is knowing yourself and knowing when you're starting
Mm-hmm.
to go into your pattern. What do I do when I start going to a,
Right.
and what do I need to do? Do I need to get outside in the sunlight? Do I need to get some exercise, make sure I'm sleeping enough? All those things
Right.
that like, what's going to bring me back? Do I need to be spending more time with my friends?
Mm-hmm.
Am I stressing too much? Just what do I need to do to take care of myself?
Right.
So that I can come back up
Right.
from the spiral. Yeah.
It's-
Pre-planning. And the other thing about having the conversation about the holidays is starting it early, so that it's a conversation that can be had, instead of everybody assuming
Right.
what's going to happen around the holidays, and if it's never talked about, then you get too far along, and then maybe it's too hard to talk about, 2 weeks before, like, oh, I can't host this year, or I really just don't feel like being there Christmas Eve, and
Right.
everybody's going to be worried about me. Just being able to start that conversation early and say, you know what, I'm going to come to Christmas morning, but I can't. The evening, I need some peaceful time alone to think about so-and-so, or I have some ritual I want to do for myself, and let people know early so they're not too worried, and just to manage it for yourself.
Well, what are some of the things that somebody who might be embarrassed to talk about it? I know that there
Yeah.
are so many people out there who are just embarrassed or ashamed
Yeah.
to talk about their depression. What can somebody who is shy about opening up about their feelings, what might they be able to do if they aren't comfortable talking to their family, or just saying, they might just say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that either. I just want to sit and be by myself. What should, family members expect out of that? Let's just say it's somebody, who, they live all together in one big house, and, doesn't matter who it is, but that one person, it's just like, I don't want to partake in that. But
Yeah.
something might be kicking in with depression for them.
Yeah.
What is it, a family member could do?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of ways to do it. I think it's always best to lead with caring.
Mhm.
Instead of, you've got to come, or you've got to do this, or get up and go. It should be so hard for someone with depression.
Because you can't snap out of depression.
You can't.
I mean, it's not like you've just.
You can't. Maybe the right person in your family can come to you and just kick you in the rear and say, go. But it's really,
That doesn't ever
if you
shake
look
it
at
away.
brain scans, like, that's not the thing that gets people going.
Mm-hmm.
And love and compassion, and showing people love and compassion with themselves, because if they're ashamed, they're probably saying some pretty harsh things to themselves, right?
Yeah.
So they don't need another person coming in and repeating the message.
Right.
Right? Like,
They're
what's
already
wrong with you? Get up. Just do it.
Because
you
they're
know?
already thinking, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Then you come in and say, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Snap out of it.
Usually we're much harder on ourselves.
Yes.
Than anybody else. You
Yeah.
know, like, everybody's beating themselves up already. So to come in with that compassion and to come in with the love and the caring. So if I'm in a household and someone's going to be holed up in their room in the middle of the family event, and I'm like, oh, you know, why? You should come. Like, don't be up there. You're going to ruin it for everybody. All right, so that may be my first family reaction, right? But then if you can think about it ahead of time and just say, what's going on for me? And go in and maybe say to the person, you're like, I love you and I care about you, and I'd love to have you downstairs. And I understand maybe if you can't, but I just need to know if you're okay up here.
Yep.
You know? And just get them to at least say, you know, I'm choosing this. It's
Right.
not that anybody's excluding me, and I'm not, you know, it's not that you are all bad to me. It's just I'm choosing, like, I don't want to do it, and have that be okay. And just say, you know, I love you and miss you. I just need to know if you're okay, and then I'm going to go. It's okay to be happy too if somebody's depressed, because that's trying to be depressed too isn't going to help them.
Right.
So, but just saying, you know, I care about you, want to be here for you if you need help, and I'm going to go be part of the party. And I need to know, I'm going to check in, or can you check in with me and let me know you're okay?
Right.
Because I'm going to worry about you otherwise if you can do that. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yep. Now, are there other things that people can do, you know, such as
Yeah.
exercising, changing their eating habits, things like that? You know, what are some of the maybe simpler things that people could do, you know, just to help themselves out?
Oh, sure. Well, one of the main things, you say go to your doctor, but there's a reason, right? Make sure you're getting a physical, because if you're low on B12, if you're low on iron, if your thyroid's out of whack, it can look like bipolar. It can look like depression if your thyroid's out of whack. That can happen as we age. So it's important to go to the doctor and just make sure there isn't something else that's causing this, right? And then, you know, we're pretty sedentary in the winter and without the light. And it's actually been shown that if we can get our heart rate up for 20 minutes a day, that should give us about a 2-hour window of relief where our systems handle stress and depression hormones much better for 2 hours, right? If you do that every day for 30 days, you get the around-the-clock benefit. So that if our minds are pumping out stress hormones because we're stuck in this anxiety, depression cycle, we're responding like there's a crisis happening, like something's happening, and the system within us that tells us to calm back down, like everything's okay, there's no danger, it can get shut down, incapacitated during a depression or anxiety episode. So exercise actually triggers that system to come back online, so that if we exercise for 20 minutes every day with the heart rate up, the heart rate just has to be up, you don't even get any extra benefit if it's past 40 minutes.
I like that.
It won't help more, right? 20. You need 20 of your heart rate up.
Yep.
And you get around the clock buffering. Now
That's great.
that's not a dramatic thing.
No,
this is
not at all.
People want big drama, but when you want a solution to depression, but it's a lot of little things that add up to better well-being. So that exercise is one, sleep. Some people need 9 or 10 hours of sleep a night. Some people just do.
And
right?
sometimes when you're depressed, you can't sleep.
And sometimes you can't sleep. So getting yourself regulated, maybe talking to your doctor about what's appropriate, looking at what you're doing right before bed, you know, am I drinking lots of coffee, but really making it a treatment plan for yourself.
Right.
To say, what's going to get me back in gear? Because then people get into that sleeping, I can't sleep cycle, it gets worse, and they crash, right? So if you know, like, oh, I'm not sleeping well, it's been a few days, I got to get back on track with that, or I'm going to start to, right?
Get down.
Have your techniques that you've figured out, like, okay, what do I need to do, right? The next few nights I'm going to bed way early, because I know, you know, I'm not staying up late to watch that show. But whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself back on track.
Right.
Because that's a huge part of mental health. Our brains repair themselves when we're sleeping.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know?
Yep.
Everything's getting tidied up in there.
Yep.
And so we need to have the time to do it.
Yeah, and just having that downtime is, you know, perfect, because you get the rest. Your body can just kind of, you know, it's not thinking specifically about any problems going on. It's just able to relax a little bit, so that way when you wake up, you do feel a little bit more refreshed and ready to take on the day. I also know, for my own personal self, I have problems with blood sugar. So I know that if I eat a lot of sugar or don't eat enough of it, you know, I just feel horrible.
Yeah.
And that can wear you down after a while too, especially when it's a daily thing where it's just, you know, you're up one minute and then down the next, and you know, you're just constantly feeling sick one moment and then okay the next. I mean, that can wear you down too. So you've got to make sure that you're eating the right things, so that way you don't feel terrible either. I mean, somebody compared it one time a long time ago, about putting bad gas in your car. You know, if you put the wrong
Right.
kind of gas in your car, what's going to happen to it? It's going to chug along, it's going to stall, it's not going to run right. But you put
Right.
the right kind of gas in it, just like the right kind of food, whatever that might be for the individual,
Yeah.
you're going to run at your optimum capacity. So you
Yeah.
want to make sure that
More
you're
efficiently.
yeah, definitely. You know, some people might want to reintroduce faith if they have a religion or a faith that they've fallen out of, or maybe they just want to seek faith, you know, or belong to some group. You know, maybe they want to maybe they want to learn how to play checkers or something like that. I know some people who like to just be creative. They might want to paint, or they might want to sew, or they might want to, you know, just do something.
Yeah.
And then volunteering. A lot of people I have found anyway, that giving back sometimes can also help out a little bit there, because you feel productive in your own personal way, that you've done something to feel better, and it makes you feel good about yourself.
No, there's a lot to be said for that, because that's the gratitude factor, right? And you're more grateful if you see somebody else helped. We kind of take that in, and it lifts us up a little bit.
Right.
For spirituality, it's just a personal thing, but that sense of greater meaning. You know, what am I here for? What gives me strength? What's my source of strength
You're right.
in this world? And I think of that as faith, you know, as spirituality. What, you know, whether it's an institution or it's not an institution, but it's just that connecting to something greater
Whatever.
than me.
Right. Exactly. Whatever you can pull the energy from
Yeah.
to help lift you up in that
Yeah.
time of need.
Yeah, that
Yep.
need for help. Yeah.
Yep. And talking a little bit here too about grief.
Yeah.
Grief and sorrow, you know, what are some of the things that people can recognize? I mean, I know that if you're grieving, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel good. Some people feel guilty, you know, if they've lost somebody and it is during the holidays, it's their first time, their first year without that individual or a relationship or whatever the case might be. It's okay to feel good too. And sometimes people forget that. They, you know, they beat themselves up for feeling good when their loved one is no longer there.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of tough. It's okay to cry. I always say lower that expectation, so that way people just aren't putting too much pressure on themselves to
Right.
excel during this, you know, tough time.
Right. Right. What am I going to do this year?
Well, and
So, yeah, there's enough hard times in life that we don't need to be hard on ourselves about going through them.
which is true, you know, and I've often, you know, there's a friend of mine, they lost their parents many, many years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago, something like that, but to this day they still can't put up a Christmas tree. And that's part of their grief process. You know, they're happy during the holidays, they have, you know, wonderful family and friends, but, you know, some of those traditions were lost when they lost their parents. And that's okay too. You know, it's whatever, you know, whatever you can do to, you know.
Yeah, I like the idea of adding in some more rituals when something comes. So it could be Thanksgiving, it could be Christmas. One that I particularly like is having a memory tree, so that if there's an empty chair at the table that year, and that people are going to be sad at times, they're not going to be sad the whole event.
Right.
But to have the idea of this particular, it's just an example, is to have like a little tree on a stand in the corner, and with little cards and clips, and then when you're thinking about the person or you're missing them, you can write your memory of them
Oh.
on the card
Yep.
and go put it on the tree. So that if you need a moment to yourself, or you need a moment to be quiet because you're really feeling it at that moment, that you can, it's okay. Everybody acknowledges, like, there's a time for us to go do this.
Right.
Let's go. They just need to go and think about that person and share stories.
And it's true, because everybody deals with grief in a different way.
Yeah.
Some people will, you know, they just start and they continue right on through. Other people can be very stoic in the beginning, and then it could be a month or two later, and all of a sudden, boom, it hits them that, you know, they just have that one moment of, if I could have only just, I want to pick up the phone and give so-and-so a call, but they're not there. And that could be the trigger point, you know.
Having a grief attack, we like to call it.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I'm on a mission of letting people know that grief attacks happen. Is that this wave of sorrow and missing somebody. And for some people, if they've never had depression, if they've never sort of felt different with their emotions. It can be really disconcerting to have this happen because it's just a wave of sadness and missing the person and being upset. And it happens. And that's totally natural with missing someone. And it'll pass. You have to keep breathing.
Yep.
And keep, and reach out to your friends and family, pray, take a rest, just do what you need to do to like strengthen yourself to get through, walk outside in nature. It's totally natural. You're not going crazy and it just happens.
Yeah.
And it keeps happening. You never stop missing someone, but it just gets a little more tolerable with time as you figure out life without them.
Now, what are some ideas of places that people could reach out to if they feel that, maybe I do have depression. Maybe it's time that I reach out, but I'm not quite sure that I'm ready to take that step, but maybe I just want to talk to somebody about it first. I'm not expecting you to have numbers in your head, but what are some of the agencies that people might be able to call, or organizations, or if they're not ready to talk to their doctor?
Sure. Well, there's lots online.
Okay.
So that is nice for privacy, right? NAMI.org is NAMI, N-A-M-I.
Okay.
There's a support group in town. It's for people dealing with mental health. It's all people who are experiencing it. There's information online, and you can go to a support group in town. VA.gov, there's a big push to reach out to veterans who can feel very alone.
Especially, yes.
And resources where the veterans can talk to other veterans about how they're feeling, because it can be such a tough transition as we've been hearing, right? And dealing with this stuff. So I think I'm a big believer in people being able to connect with somebody that they feel can understand them, and that they understand, and they can really connect and support each other that way. And if somebody's really having a hard time, 1-800-SUICIDE.
Okay.
Suicidal thoughts are things that occur to most people in their lifetime at one time or another. But if you're getting to that place where you're thinking you might
need to start.
That's national. You call 1-800-SUICIDE. It will route you to your local person, and you can just talk. You don't have to be suicidal.
Right.
But if you're sort of getting to that place where you're like, oh, I'm really thinking about this, it's kind of scaring me. I want to talk to somebody. It's anonymous.
And that's good. Some people don't have a physician, so that's one reason why I thought, it might be good, for people to, be able to reach out. So I wish we had more time, because I think that we could continue going on about this.
Thank you.
Certainly I could.
Fun.
But, for anybody who's out there, if you'd like to know more information about what the Bennington Area VNA and Hospice has to offer, certainly you can give us a call at 442-5502, or visit our website, which is www.bavnah.org. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. We usually post things on there that give people some ideas of upcoming clinics or upcoming activities that we have to offer. So thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us today. I appreciate your time and your thought, and hope we can get you back on again here soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.